Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tuesday night, March 1st regular voting meeting of the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County. We welcome those who are listening by way of watching by way of television and those who are also using their computers. We ask that those persons who are sitting in the audience that have electronic devices, if you would kindly turn them off or turn them to silence. Thank you. Tonight, the meeting is divided into 4 sections. We will have the section on our consent agenda, one on the old business agenda, and we have zoning items. And at the end of the meeting, any person may come to the mic and speak for 3 minutes to any item they would like to speak to. Mrs. Spratling has on her desk a light that for 2.5 minutes it will be green. 30 seconds, it would turn amber, and after the 30 seconds, it would turn to red. We would ask you to try to please complete your comments by the 3-minute time. I'm not a nice person. I will stop you. When the light says red, I will stop you. Please, so try to conclude your conversation. Mayor Dilson is much nicer than I am.
I second that motion.
Ms. Spratling, would you call the roll, please?
Dickerson.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Bailey.
Here.
Neesmith.
Here.
Bale.
Here.
Harrod. Gertz.
Here.
Hamby.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And I would just like to state before we start the meeting, the reason that you see Harry Sims sitting here and not Mayor Nancy Denson, she fell ill just a little while ago, and she's at home. So we wish her a speedy recovery. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the Tuesday, February 2nd minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Gertz and seconded by Mr. Bailey. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Ms. Bradley, do we have any written communication?
For entry to the record, we have notification from Transportation and Public Works Director David Clark of acceptance of McClung Road in the 29 North Commercial Subdivision.
Thank you. At this time, we have some presentations that we'd like to make. Believe me, you live in a town that is truly blessed by the quality of the employees that work for the citizens of Athens-Clarke County. And tonight, you'll see the proof in the pudding. So I'm going to come down front here, and I'm going to ask, CALEA would come forward. Mr. Vince Darrow, got it right. He's the regional manager of the Southeast and Caribbean region for the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies. Our Sheriff's Department has applied for this, and it's I'll let him explain all that. Would the following gentlemen come forward, please, and lady? Sheriff Edwards, Chief Deputy Cole, Chief Jailer York, Captain Elizabeth Robinson, Captain Tommy Goin, Captain Hayden Hodges, and the one who makes it all happen, Sergeant Patricia Marks. If you'll come on this side of the rail, please. And Mr. Darrow says he's not trying to put his back to you, but he says he has so many things he'd like to read, so that's why he's over on that side of the rail. We'll get him back over here when we take a picture.
Speak real loud from over there. On behalf of the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, otherwise known as CALEA, Commission Chair Chief Richard Myers and Executive Director Mr. W. Craig Hartley Jr., I thank you for welcoming me to present the November 2015 Accreditation Award to the Clarke County Sheriff's Office. CALEA was created in 1979 when the founding organizations, the International Associations of Chiefs of Police, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National Sheriff's Association, and the Police Executive Research Forum recognized the need within the law enforcement community to develop professional standards to enhance the delivery of police services to the citizens throughout the communities they serve. CALEA is the only internationally recognized public safety accrediting body in existence, serving Canada, Mexico, Barbados, in addition to the United States. Since its inception, CALEA has accredited over 1,000 agencies under standards developed by many of the best public safety agency professionals and leaders of our time. Gaining internationally accredited status is a distinction held by very few, as there are over 18,000 law enforcement agencies just in the United States alone. That equates to just below 5% of the agencies in the United States. These standards cover a wide range of administrative, operational, logistical issues, as well as a modern management model that provides a framework for recognizing public safety excellence within public safety. The goals of CALEA are to strengthen crime prevention and crime control capabilities, formalize essential management procedures, establish fair and non-discriminatory personnel practices, improve service delivery, solidify interagency cooperation and coordination, and increase community and staff confidence in the agency. Many agency heads are reluctant to have outsiders review their work and their administrative practices and detail any deficiencies that the agencies may have. It involves risk. It also requires the department to be open to change so they can demonstrate that they work and conduct business in a way that meets contemporary standards. Sheriff Edwards thinks otherwise. He understands that CALEA accreditation minimizes his agency's exposure to liability. It demonstrates accountability to the public, and it guarantees professional management practices. In practical terms, the sheriff believes it confirms their commitment to excellence in law enforcement. Based on the goals and mission of CALEA, I can think of no better time to present this accreditation certificate than at a very public meeting of the mayor and commissioners, where everyone can recognize the hard work this agency has committed toward accomplishing this goal. I'll go off script just a little bit. It's very important for the community to understand that not only do you have a law enforcement agency that serves you, but you have a governing body that wants to serve you as well. The governing body to you, your support of the law enforcement agency is very important. They could not do it without you. It's a lot of hard work. And the sheriff has led his group to put procedures and policies in place to make sure that he does everything right. But it cannot be done without the total community. So it's very important that everyone is here to be involved in this, because it's really a thank you to everyone. The certificate itself is simply a matted paper within a frame, but it has a much broader symbolic meaning. The certificate clearly represents the agency's effort to achieve accredited status, thereby demonstrating its willingness to change in order to effectively address contemporary public safety concerns. It represents a commitment to doing the right thing and doing it the right way. It represents adherence to a professional code. Lastly, it represents ongoing dedication to ensuring the agency's resources are appropriately managed, developed, and effectively deployed in the name of a safer county for citizens and visitors alike. On August 10 through 12, 2015, two professional assessors visited the Clarke County Sheriff's Office. They reviewed the agency's applicable files, activities, functional impacts, and management strategies. The assessors determined the agency's compliance with all applicable standards. They also noted the agency's commitment to the accreditation process is clearly evident, and the agency members were very professional and dedicated to the accreditation process. The assessors spoke with members of the Athens-Clarke County Unified Government, some are probably represented here today, as well as members of the allied public service agencies in the area. They all praised the work of the agency in striving for this achievement, as well as the dedication and community service shown. The assessors found that the agency's personnel were proud to be members of the Clarke County Sheriff's Office and were reflective of a professional attitude with a high sense of service to the community. At the commission meeting held in Miami, Florida on November 21st, 2015, CALEA commissioners reviewed the assessor's report, concurred with their findings, and unanimously voted to reaccredit the agency. This is the Sheriff's Office's second award for law enforcement accreditation. And Sergeant Marks knows the second one's the hardest one, because you've been involved in this for 3 years, you said what you're going to do, now you've had to prove what you're going to do. At this time, I'd like to invite the sheriff forward. I'm going to go up with him and Sergeant Marks and the staff to receive the certificate. Note that none of this would be possible had it not been for the hard work performed by Sheriff Edwards, his command staff, as well as all members of the agency, who I'm sure the command staff are representing, because you probably couldn't get everybody in this room today. Now let's try to speak real loud. I'd like to read a little bit of this. This is the certificate that they have earned. This is their second one. This is what it says. Be it hereby known that the Clarke County, Georgia Sheriff's Office, having fully demonstrated its voluntary commitment to law enforcement excellence, by living up to a body of standards deemed essential to the protection of the life, health, and safety and rights of the citizens it serves, and having exemplified the best professional practices in the conduct of its responsibilities, is hereby, upon the recommendation of the members of the Commission, awarded the Certificate of Accreditation. This is their second award, and it's good for 3 years. And if I may, there's two little ones I'd like to also read. This is a team effort from everybody in this room, citizens and people alike, but there are several people that work very hard for this, and it takes a lot of dedication. So we give a certificate of appreciation to Sheriff Ira Edwards Jr. as an expression of gratitude for your contribution to the law enforcement accreditation program as a leader of an accredited agency. Sheriff?
Thank you very much.
Just put the pretty one up front.
and then Sergeant Patricia Marks, for those of y'all in the agency know, but the citizens may not know this, this is the person that takes all the grief for all the paperwork that's generated. If it goes well, she gets accolades. If it doesn't, she gets terminated. So it's very important. So certificate of appreciation to Sergeant Patricia Marks as an expression of gratitude for your contribution to the law enforcement accreditation program as accreditation manager.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
One of the commissioners asked who was manning the store. And since everybody was here, of course, we have a nice little pretty place out there for people to come. Miss Stacy Farrell, if you would come. This is for Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful. They recently received 3 awards from a statewide Keep Georgia Beautiful Foundation. The first award was a First Place Affiliate of the Year Award. For the 3rd time, the Athens-Clarke County Keep Clean and Beautiful has won a statewide accolades for providing programs for outreach service that positively affect the community and engage citizen volunteers. On an annual basis, KACCB administers 11 litter prevention programs, 7 recycling program events, and 12 community beautification programs, all with 2.5 staff members. Keep Athens Clean has come to be the model program for affiliates across the country. Last year, Keep Athens Clean and Beautiful held 67 outreach programs, engaged 10,582 volunteers into action, and educated 6,626 students in 29 schools. One. 2, our first place. This is, we don't do things unless it's the right way. Community Improvement and Greening Award. This award honors our group for their School Garden Network program. As part of its mission to serve and educate Athens citizens, Keep Clean and Beautiful works with schools to provide environmental education programs on litter prevention and beautification. Several years ago, the Clean and Beautiful identified a need for more gardening programs to meet the needs of students with limited access to outdoor time and healthy food options. Keep Clean and Beautiful and partners worked to create a school garden network to bring local farmers, businesses, and nonprofit organizations together to support and maintain usable school gardens and outdoor teaching space in the schools in Athens-Clarke County. First place. We got a second place this time, but that's okay. Second place for Litter Prevention Award. This award highlights the Athens Keep Clean and Beautiful for this creative public education campaign. With little humor and a positive underlying message, Keep Athens Clean and Beautiful created the Littervention. Your dirty secret is out. Get Clean for Athens public education program. The message was meant to be a conversation starter for citizens and students to educate families and friends about undesirable littering behavior. Keep Athens Clean and Beautiful is partnered with the University of Georgia's Office of Sustainability to widen the scope and to bring littervention to the University of Georgia campus. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And the beat goes on. All right, who's next? Mr. Andrew Bilecki from our solid waste program. The 2016 Solid Waste Association of North America Georgia Chapter Award for Collection Systems Excellence was presented to the Athens-Clarke County Solid Waste Department Collection Division at the annual Fall Conference in November of 2015. The award was given to a select public and private collection program that demonstrates a high quality of proficiency, safety, and professionalism by means of new technology, efficient routing, creative marketing, and by employing a team of dedicated staff with a commitment to providing their customers with the highest level of customer service. This award was given to the Solid Waste Department Collection Division for the conversion to automated truck encompassing planning, marketing, efficiency, and economies gained by the conversion. And as you know, you don't see them out there walking behind the truck now. They scoop it up from the side. Congratulations. We call forward Mr. Victor Pope and L. Harris. I told you we're just an award-winning town. And we're going to get back to the business at hand in just about 5 minutes. 2015 GTA Innovation Award. Athens Transit System received the Georgia Transit Association Innovation Award at the 2015 conference. The Georgia Transit Association is an association comprised of 14 urban transit agencies and 114 rural transit agencies, leading the transportation industry, as well as vendors who provide products which support Georgia transportation agencies. Athens Transit System competed against the other transit systems and was selected for the Innovation Award for its work in marketing and deployment of its Sunday service. As a department of the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County, Athens Transit System's mission is to exhibit excellence in all aspects of transportation services provided to the citizens of Athens-Clarke County. Athens Transit is at all times seeking to improve the transportation services offered to our citizens, as well as the method of implementing new transportation services. On August 16, 2015, Athens Transit launched its Sunday bus service. This was the first time in the 39-year history of the Athens Transit that it was offered Sunday services. So we say congratulations. You got them, Butch? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if Mr. Rick Parker would come forward. These are the fun ones here. We get to receive. This was giving. Mr. Parker.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, fellow citizens. As many of you may know, the Athens Housing Authority is an independent organization that, while public in nature, is not a department of local government. We do not use local tax dollars for our operation, and while technically exempt from local property taxes, we do make a payment in lieu of taxes, that's pilot, everything has an acronym, pilot payment annually. I'm here this evening to present this year's check in the amount of $116,699.73 to the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County. I also want to take this opportunity to thank you for establishing an affordable housing fund years ago with these dollars. These accumulated pilot funds have been used to support an important redevelopment project in our community. The transformation of the Jack R. Wells Paldo public housing neighborhood is a key component of the revitalization of the Hawthorne corridor. 100 units of elderly housing representing phase 1 of this project were completed in December 2014 and were fully occupied within the first year of operations. Construction of phase 2, representing 132 family units, was completed by January 1 of this year, and these units are leasing now and are already more than 10% filled. Construction on phase 3's 138 family units has begun and is expected to be complete by the spring of next year. Local government support of this project with home funds, SPLOST dollars, and the Affordable Housing Fund, supported by the Athens Housing Authority's pilot payments, has helped leverage a total of $39 million in tax credit equity directly to this project. When completed, the Athens Housing Authority and its development partner, Columbia Residential, will have generated more than $60 million of new real estate development for our community. In addition, we will have completed $5 million of new public infrastructure and deeded it back to local government. More importantly, we will have fundamentally transformed an outdated public housing neighborhood into a modern, mixed-income community equally divided among market rate, tax credit, and public housing residents. As an added bonus, this former public housing site that did not pay property taxes will now contribute real estate taxes every year. This past year, phase 1, the smallest of the 3 phases, generated about $65,000 in new real estate taxes. When all 3 phases are complete, our preliminary estimate is more than $250,000 of new revenue each year for Athens-Clarke County, in addition to our pilot payment. Thank you for this opportunity to make this brief presentation, and thank you again for your support of the Athens Housing Authority and its redevelopment transformation efforts. This Thursday, March the 3rd, commissioners are invited to attend a special open house between 3 and 6 p.m. We hope that you'll be able to join us and enjoy a sneak preview of this exceptional redevelopment effort. Thank you very much again for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Now back to the business at hand. Again, we have 4 times that public can speak. This is the first of 3 times. We have the consent agenda. We're going to ask if anyone would like to speak to items 1 through 7 on the consent agenda. Hopefully you have a program. If you did not get one, they're outside on the podium if we have not used them all up. Seeing no one coming to the mic, is there anyone in the commission that would like to remove any item from the consent agenda?
I'd like to remove number 7 just for some discussion.
Item number 7 will be removed, and it will be the first one to come up when we go to old business. Is there any other one? I will entertain a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda.
So moved.
It is moved by Mrs. Wright, seconded by Ms. Dickerson. All those in favor, let them know the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. This is the second opportunity for public comment. Items which will include number 7, numbers 8, 9, 10, and 11. If anyone would like to speak to any of these items, please come forward. Please state your name and your address, and you remember the 3-minute warning. Thank you.
Tyler Dewey, 149 Tracy Street. I'm here again speaking on behalf of Bike Athens, Mayor and Commission, Mayor Pro Tem. Hope you're having a good evening. I'm here to speak primarily about item 9, the goals and objectives, even more specifically about the goal area of transportation and mobility. I'm not going to waste my time or your time noting the tension between the strategy of improving, providing safe, reliable, accessible, well-planned, pedestrian-friendly transportation network, and the tension between that and half the strategies in that goal area being devoted to a roundabout in a far-flung edge of town and building a new airport. I think there is a tension there. But I rather talk more and celebrate the proposed action to expand and update the bicycle master plan. I've heard that Transportation Public Works has actually submitted a funding request for that, and I hope you fund it to the level necessary to produce a gold level bike master plan that can be designed and implemented to the fullest extent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Tony Eubanks, 785 North Pope Street. I didn't get an agenda, so I don't know what items I'm speaking to tonight, but I want to speak to the Hancock Street, Dougherty Street, and I want to thank David Clarke for that.
Item number 11.
Item number 11. I want to thank David Clarke for 2 reasons. Number 1, thinking outside the box to try and solve a problem, and number 2, to address a problem before repaving. We fixing something when it's broken is important, and waiting 10 years until it's repaved is really kind of not acceptable. So I applaud David Clarke for both of those points. And the second one is your goals and objectives. I would really like to see, when you set your budget, I would really like to see you annually fund pedestrian safety improvements. Last year, y'all did a great job of finding, $260,000 for pedestrian safety. I think that's the first time that you've actually budgeted something specifically for pedestrian safety in a long time. I think that that's something that should be included in the budget on a regular basis. And for me personally, number 1 priority is to bring in RFBs, the rectangular flashing beacons, at every crosswalk in town so that we have consistency. I've heard David Clarke and talk about the need for consistent signage everywhere in the county. They've done a good job of doing that in the school zones, and I think we need it on every crosswalk in the city. So I hope that you'll take that into consideration when you're setting your budget priorities. I know that there's a lot of give and take in that process, but we need consistent funding and we need consistency in our signage. So thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
Elliot Caldwell, 470 Pine Needle Road. So I'm up here speaking for myself, but also speaking for Georgia Bikes, which is the organization I work for. Here to support number 11, the Dougherty Street restriping project. I think it's a great project. It's not perfect, but I think it's a great first step, especially along a corridor that services a lot of Athens residents, and what I've noticed is sort of is a bypass around downtown and becomes sort of a speedway. Whether it's rush hour, non-rush hour hours, people are going 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour cars going down the street. I would really like to see, Athens look at more sort of traffic calming measures this way, whether it's, again, being able to slow cars down, adding more crosswalks. And I think, one thing that's important is that I want to commend David Clarke for, proposing this, putting this forward. But this is a long process. I talked to Kelly, Commissioner Gertz members, a couple years ago. I was interviewing Denny Towers residents as part of a social work project at UGA. I was a social work student there. And they were lamenting the fact that they couldn't go downtown or didn't feel comfortable or safe going downtown, crossing Dougherty Street, considering how fast the traffic was going. I don't think Dougherty Street is the only street like that in this community, and I don't think it's only senior citizens that have concerns about crossing busy streets like Dougherty, like Prince Avenue. So I know number 11 is just about Dougherty Street, but I think as we talk about these issues and vote on something like this, it's important to think about other kinds of streets like Dougherty in our city that are way too dangerous for pedestrians to cross and for cyclists to use and for everyone to be able to use. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commission, staff. Tim Denson, 290 Midway Road. I also wanted to speak to, number 10, number 11 also, the Dougherty Street. I just want to say also I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad, like Tony Eubanks said, of trying to address a problem before it became a bigger problem, and actually before repaving, seeing that was a possibility. And also to the goals and objectives, I want to again thank the Commission for making it a priority to include living wages for all employees. I think it's a high priority, and it's time that the county sets an example for all other employers in this county and the state, honestly. I'm again going to, because I will keep on harping on it because I think it's very important for transparency. Transparency is posed one of the goals. If we want transparency, we need to make sure that the meetings that aren't the voting and agenda setting meetings, the work sessions and all other meetings that happen at the Dougherty Street building are also recorded, and so that people can watch them if they're not there, or at least at the minimum having minutes recorded and audio. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Abigail West, 299 Boulevard. I'd like to address also one of the things that you talked about in the budget goals and strategies. I'd like to voice my support for a fee on single-use plastic bags here in Athens-Clarke County. I've talked to a few of you about this proposal and noted from the goals that you guys set for the year that many of you agree that such a fee would help reduce the consumption of plastic bags, reducing waste, and ultimately improving our local environment. The hazards of widespread use of disposable plastic bags are numerous and would take me longer than these 3 minutes to list, though I'm happy to talk to anyone about them. A few that are particularly notable, the plastic used to make these bags can take 500 to 1,000 years to degrade, and in the degradation process they break down into smaller and smaller pieces, polluting aquatic environments and harming wildlife. Yes, they can be recycled, but this is an energy-intensive process, and, perhaps more significantly, an EPA report noted that less than 5% of plastic shopping bags in the U.S. are recycled. The clear solution is not to use these bags in the first place. The proposed fee would encourage the use of reusable shopping bags instead of these single-use plastics. Sustainability measures are clearly important to Athens-Clarke County, as we can see by the success of recent projects such as Solarize Athens. Now we have another opportunity before us to demonstrate that we are a community that cherishes our environment and cares about how we pass it off to further future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No one else? We will now come behind the rail. We'll begin with item number 7. Ms. Link, you had that pulled off.
Yeah, I thought this merited a little bit of discussion. This is a proposal from our Government Operations Committee to send or to request that staff come up with some new thresholds for speed bumps in our neighborhood. We had a lot of discussion of it, and this is probably the #1 request we get as commissioners is for traffic calming in our neighborhoods. So I look forward to seeing that come forward with staff. And I hope that a lot more neighborhoods can actually qualify for speed bumps. Those thresholds, I believe, were 800 cars per day and 37 miles an hour, which is, that's really fast, and that's a lot of cars. And there are a lot of streets out there that might not quite meet those thresholds, and people feel really unsafe on their streets. But there's more work to be done on this, and I have requested that the mayor put these items on the Government Operations Committee's agenda so we can have a more broad discussion about traffic calming and pedestrian safety in our neighborhood streets. I did point out some very specific areas of code that we can tweak a little bit here and there. That will definitely help make our streets safer. We could take a new look at school zones, speed limit reductions, driveway requirements. We have a lot of really wide driveways out there that seem to encourage high-speed traffic. We could look at four-way stops. Apparently, it's not we don't have a policy to use four-way stops as traffic calming measures, where there are some places where I personally feel like they would be very appropriate on streets that are not through streets and should not be through streets. Pedestrian circulation plans and patio pathway requirements in neighborhood adjacent commercial development could help give pedestrians some alternate choices to get them off the streets and cutting through properties. And also crosswalk requirements. We don't have many crosswalk requirements for new development. So there's a lot of areas where we could turn to, and with a few simple tweaks in our code, we could greatly increase pedestrian safety in our neighborhoods and our neighborhood adjacent commercial corridors. So I hope that the mayor will take that to heart and allow the Government Operations Committee to continue this discussion. And I know that the Legislative Review Committee is looking at sidewalk requirements and looking for more options to expand our sidewalk network. So hopefully we will start to see safer streets and sidewalks in our community. So with that, I would like to move that we go ahead and pass this measure.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been motioned by Ms. Link, seconded by Mr. Gertz, that we approve the recommendation coming from the Government Operations Committee. All those in favor, let it know the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Item number 8, Mr. Attorney, would you read us the ordinance for this one, please, sir?
Sir, an ordinance with respect to establishing the Deering Street Residential Parking District between South Millage Avenue and Pope Street and for other purposes.
I'll entertain a motion or discussion.
I would like to move that we accept this, please.
Second. It has been moved and seconded. The motion was made by Ms. Bell, seconded by Mr. Hamby. All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same sign. Item number 9, goals and objectives for our budget for the coming year. The floor is open.
I make a motion that we accept it. We've been talking about this since October. We've done a lot of work. Staff has done a lot of work. I make a motion we accept what we have brought forward.
Second.
Motion was made by Ms. Wright, seconded by Mr. Hamby. Mr. Hamby, any further discussion?
I just want to acknowledge some of the comments brought up by some of the folks in the House. And I hope that we will follow through with some of our further commitments to pedestrian and bike safety. We've been talking about a bike master plan. And next week, we're having a work session, and we'll be talking about our planning department special projects. There are a lot of things that didn't seem to make it in the goals and objectives, possibly because they fall under those special projects. We've brought up downtown design guidelines. We're about to see our 5th appeal of a Historic Preservation Commission decision in about a year. So there's some pretty clear indications that we need to revisit those historic district guidelines, possibly consider conservation districts. We did talk about zoning and land use on our corridors, our commercial corridors, and somehow that didn't explicitly make it into the goals and objectives, and I'm presuming that's in the planning special projects. These are some of the things that have come out of the Prince Avenue corridor study, the Oconee corridor study, some of the Atlanta highway work, and the Lexington highway work. And we still have never come back to this green building ordinance that never got revived from about 5 years ago now. And our whole discussion in this goals and objectives thing seemed to initially be framed by the concept that we want greater citizen participation in our local government. But that didn't really seem to make it into the final document explicitly. We do request a criminal justice coordinating committee, which is something that came out of a criminal justice task force from 2008. And repeatedly, I've been asking for a transportation commission, some kind of citizen commission that can vet transportation projects and offer some kind of citizen input on projects before they come to a vote. And I feel like commissions like this are a place where we can nurture new leadership, which is something that we really need to do in this community, nurture some young leaders. So I hope that we'll take some serious consideration in creating more citizen boards and commissions and transparency. We do have voting meetings in that Dougherty Street building, and there's no setup to record those meetings and to get video of those meetings. I feel like it's essential that we get some kind of audio and video, even if we set up a GoPro camera and download the video and make it available. We definitely need greater transparency and to encourage greater citizen input, and informed citizens are able to give greater input. So if we have that kind of recording of those meetings, we will have a more informed citizens. So I'll go ahead and follow up with everybody and vote for this if anybody else has any more comments.
Mr. Hamby?
Thank you. Thank you. I would just like to add, and Commissioner Wright picked up on this, that we have been talking about this since October. And it's a good discussion. And I think the way this process played out this time has been even better. Certainly, we spent a full day together talking about the initial budget goals and objectives and came out for another half-day session for what you see here before us. And what you see here before us, I believe, are some of the things that our staff are already working on. I know we just voted on some transportation issues with government ops and what our staff is going to be looking at there. But I will say this: Steve Decker, our traffic engineer, is always available to anybody that wants to talk about issues in their neighborhood. And Steve, in my experience, has always been someone who can try to help people find solutions to their situation. I can point specifically to numerous examples over on Hill Street, over on Cloverhurst. He did something, our staff did something as simple just a few weeks ago about painting some white lines on a stop sign that wasn't as visible as the residents near there thought it should be, and the white line has certainly helped. So the point I'm trying to make is some of the things that we learned in the budget goals and objectives are some good things our staff is doing, and I'm glad they're in there, and I'm glad we're able to highlight a lot of this stuff. And certainly what we did was help staff prioritize where the few dollars are going that we're able to get to do some projects. I do hope that this year some of that will go to pedestrian safety. I know we do have some SPLOST dollars, about $5 million. About 4.5 of which is still available for safe routes and pedestrian projects. We still have about $5 million left for some bicycle improvements, bicycle lane improvements. So there's things out there that's not necessarily in the general fund pot of money, but in the SPLOST pot of money. And I'll also remind us that certainly T-SPLOST is coming up for a vote here soon, so that's going to open up a whole new opportunities for us to make our streets and sidewalks safer. So at any rate, I say all that to say it was a good process, and I look forward to seeing how we've prioritized this, and I look forward to seeing some progress on that. So, thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to thank all of y'all for being agreeable to trying a different process. And putting the time that it required. I think there were some good hallmarks of this process, including more extended dialogue between the Commission about what they would like to see. I think what you have produced is a much more holistic vision for what you believe this government ought to be doing. And there were some normative statements here that citizens can understand what it is your vision is. And then fourthly, this gave the opportunity for staff, after you gave a vision, for them to come back to you with ideas. And I thought that was a great intersection between the elected body and the staff because we're both responsible for this government's performance. And a lot of the folks in the audience and watching tonight were not a part of that process, and I do want to qualify one thing. There are an awful lot of ideas in these goals and objectives, and we will not be able to accomplish all of them in this coming year, partially due to limited budget resources, partially due to staff time, and we will continue the budget process that you're accustomed to, where the manager makes recommendations to the mayor makes recommendations to the commission, and the commission has the final touches on the budget. So I want everybody to be clear that not everything will get done, and I hope you won't be disappointed. But what we do have from the mayor and commission is a consensus on the priority or what they'd like to see happen, and we're going to try to make that happen as best we can.
Thank you, sir. No further comments. The motion, Ms. Wright, seconded by Mr. Hamby, to approve item number 9. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion is carried. Item number 10. It comes from our Legislative Review Committee. Mr. Gertz, you might want to jump into this one.
I appreciate it, Mayor Pro Tem. But we talked about this a little bit at the agenda-setting meeting, and at the end of a couple of meetings of discussion by the LRC, the majority body decided to pass out with no action. However, I think some additional work is warranted, and so you note in the agenda report that there is some additional information and comment provided, which is that the Legislative Review Committee requests that future consideration for the establishment of a zoning district less than 10 acres in size but greater than 40,000 square feet happen as part of the comprehensive planning process. That process is being kicked off this year, so we're talking about relatively kind of short-term action on this. I think everybody feels as if there may be an opportunity to look at the way the AR is arranged, but we didn't want to do this on an ad hoc basis and micromanage a component that might want to exist in the frame of a larger discussion or another set of opportunities that happen as part of the comp plan process. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Second. It is, the motion was made by Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Neesmith. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to throw in, because a lot of the AR property does end up in District 1, and this was something that I brought before. I'd asked the mayor to bring to the committee to discuss, that I do agree that the comprehensive plan is the vehicle by which we need to bring this back to the public and get feedback from the public to make decisions about how the land is used. And I appreciate the opportunity to do so, and I look forward to the discussion.
Mr. Neesmith.
It so happens that in the last comprehensive plan, 8 years ago, we did come up with a new concept that showed on the land use map, and that's something called rural residential, and it's shown on the maps. So it's not a zoning specification, but it is actually somewhere between RS40 and agricultural residential. So we've got a good step in that direction to go by.
That was a motion. Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Neesmith. All those in favor, sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed? Item number 11 has an ordinance. Mr. Berryman.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to establishing a parking meter zone on Dougherty Street between Pulaski Street and Thomas Street and for other purposes.
Discussion. Motion. Mr. Gertz.
A little bit of discussion, and then I'll make a motion. I very much appreciate David Clark and folks in Transportation Public Works taking a look at Dougherty Street after the initial work session that we had, where we were looking at pedestrian safety in a variety of zones countywide. At that discussion, it was determined that we didn't want to do some micro-level changes, that we wanted to think more broadly about Dougherty Street. And so they came back with a plan very much like the one that we have in front of us tonight. I think this is a positive plan. It's a plan that will make Dougherty Street demonstrably safer for pedestrians and for motorists. It's a plan, as some of the speakers mentioned, that's going to make things more opportune for residents of Denny Tower who can access the retail and other amenities downtown, and for people who are passing back and forth, of which there are many, many folks, and I think will be an increasing number of people in the future. There's a small change that I'm going to propose in my motion in just a second. I want to explain that. After the agenda-setting meeting, we were contacted by people associated with the Athens Welcome Center, which is on the corner of Dougherty Street and Thomas Street, who wanted assurance that buses would continue to be able to have people depart in front of their building on the Dougherty Street frontage. And so staff has made a very minor modification in between Jackson Street and Thomas Street that would allow for continued two-lane of traffic in the eastbound motion in that block. So I'd like to go ahead and make a commission-defined option to approve the proposed installation of 2 sets of rectangular rapid flashing beacons for restriping of East and West Dougherty Street between Pulaski Street and Thomas Street, as illustrated in attachments 1A and 1B, with the exception of that area directly in front of the Athens Welcome Center. And the striping for that area will be completed as illustrated in attachment 2 in the package that commissioners were provided with to preserve that loading and unloading area for buses and motor coaches. Another component of the motion is relocation of the bus stop east of Jackson Street to the bus pull-off area immediately west of Jackson Street, and finally for creation of metered on-street parking places along the north and south sides of East and West Dougherty Street, as shown in attachments 1A and 1B, and use of the Downtown Enhancement Program capital funds for the purchase and installation of 72 parking meters in this area.
It is seconded by Mr. Neesmith. Couldn't do anything until somebody had to say something. We have a motion by Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Neesmith. Any further discussion? Ms. Lynch.
Yeah, I'd like to extend my thanks to David Clark and his staff for proposing this project. You know, it's a long overdue. Dougherty Street is a street that I cross regularly. I wait for the bus out there in front of Denny Towers, and I know that folks there are looking forward to feeling safer crossing the street and getting downtown. And I feel like this is a project, you know, again, where we could have used the input of some kind of transportation commission. We got this input from the Welcome Center kind of at the final hour. And I feel like, you know, with a greater, more discussive citizen input process on projects like this, we wouldn't have those kind of last-minute scrambles. And we might get even better transportation projects and more creative solutions to some of our safety problems. And yeah, I hope that this is just a prelude of things to come. There are plenty of other streets in our community that could use a similar treatment. I think of, you know, the senior housing at Brookside. We have a really dangerous intersection there where a pedestrian was killed just a couple months ago, and you know that could use some additional safety treatments. So I hope that, you know, we'll see great success in this project, and it'll inspire us to take it on in other places throughout the community. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Hamby.
Thank you. And I'm pleased to support this project, and I would like to point out that certainly this came up during a work session probably back early fall of last year where we discussed this. Is actually at the discussion where we were talking about some other neighborhood traffic or calming measures. And there was a public input session. There's been several articles in the newspaper, and we've also had some agenda setting and now this meeting. So it's not uncommon for somebody to bring something to our attention at the last minute. But what I'm real pleased about today especially is just how quick our staff reacted to that and found a way to fix the concern, which was really really good. And I appreciate that. And I also want to comment about this project in particular and the impact that it's going to have on downtown. Commissioner Gertz pointed out some of the safety items about it, and true, it is a big safety fix for a street that a lot of cars go fast on. It's basically the bypass for downtown, I suppose. But what it's going to become by this action, I hope, is a way for us to extend the activities of downtown. So certainly we've got an RFP that's being prepared for the lot in front of Indigo Hotel, and that in my mind, you know, I could see some office up top and some retail down below or and such as that. So it does increase the activity for that and allows for more pedestrian situations on Dougherty Street. So I think there's some good benefit in us looking at downtown like that to extend the grid, so to speak, of downtown to Dougherty Street. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it. Thanks.
All those in favor of the motion, let them know by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Mr. Brad's going, okay. That concludes our regular meeting. Now we have one text amendment that needs to be discussed. We will ask if anyone is interested in coming to the podium to discuss the text amendment. Seeing no one coming forward, Mr. Berryman, would you read the ordinance, please?
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia with respect to accessory structures and for other purposes.
Mr. Griffith, if you will take the podium if needed.
I really don't need it at this point,
Okay.
other than just to answer questions.
Yeah, well, I wanted to bring forward some insights and a solution that I think would work best for the community. I appreciate the work that the Planning Commission has done on this. Having a commission district that has a lot of tear downs and infills and stresses to its character. I appreciate the considerations that are being made with this accessory building, but I would like for the Planning Commission to have a little more time with it to give us some more details and parameters so that this accessory structure can have some more details to it, such as instead of it being maybe a 3-foot setback, it go ahead and be a 6-foot. I don't want to tell them what direction I would want, but I think we need a little more details in it. I would like the ordinance to be in favor of the investments we want people to make in the existing buildings and accessory structures so that they don't become a tear down and an infill stress. Some of the new infill buildings and houses are so much larger, but they are meeting what our criteria are, but they're so much larger than what's there, and at the rate of the 50% percentage of an accessory structure, it could be an accessory building that's larger than the houses around it. So that's the kind of feedback I would like to go to the Planning Commission and see what more they could bring to us that would help us define it better.
Is that a motion?
And that there's a motion to send it back to the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
The motion, I think, needs to be that we deny
Okay.
the motion,
Okay,
what's
I make a
coming from the
motion
Planning
that
Commission
I make a
and
motion that we deny the text amendment
and return it to
them for more specifics.
I'll second that.
I have a motion. The motion is to deny the text amendment, and the second by Ms. Lee. Okay, discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was at the Planning Commission meetings. There were 2 or 3 of them where they discussed this, and there was some really good discussion, and I certainly agree that we do need to raise the minimum size and allow, a reasonable minimum size for our accessory structures. But I feel like there does need to be some kind of guidance towards maximum and towards setbacks. I did a little calculating in my own house, in my little 1,400 square foot house, which a lot of that is porch. And I could put a 10 by 70 foot accessory structure right on my property line, and my property line is right along the side of my neighbor's house. So, there are a lot of worst case scenarios out there that I think could be really disruptive to neighborhoods, especially when you do see these overscaled infill projects going on. So I think there's definitely some more discussion that needs to be had, and the Planning Commission started to get there. And I think that, they could go a little bit further and just consider, the maximum possibilities. Maybe we do need a maximum scale or a maximum facade length or greater setbacks. Just a little more discussion, so there is some limitation on how big these things can get.
Mr. Hamby.
Sure. And I'm just, Commissioner Wright, would you please state one more time what the specifics are that you're looking for the Planning Commission to look at?
Well, what it would be, if it's, and this is maybe a legal part of it, is it possible for these decisions to be for what is an existing building instead of a new infill, as far as an accessory building being 50% of it? I don't know if that's something that they looked at as far as existing buildings versus new, but I guess what I'm looking for is some more details so that the accessory buildings that there's a maximum to it.
No, and I don't disagree with that.
But I think that you're trying to get me to spit it out. I appreciate that.
No, and I was a little concerned at our agenda setting meeting that, certainly if you have a 3,000, but I think as Brad, I was thinking if you had a 3,000 square foot house, could you build a 1,500 square foot accessory structure? And I believe that Planning Commissioner Griffin mentioned that a lot of that is determined by the size of the lot as well. So
right, and so what we're seeing is like an accessory building. I think as it's in here could be 3 feet from the property line.
Right, which is close.
Which is really close. And so maybe what we would look at is the sizes going with the 6 feet that is for the sides, just so that we're not getting dramatic changes. But again, I think the purpose of this coming forward in the beginning was to continue what is the character in some of our in-town areas with that mother-in-law suite or the hobby garage or the extra bedroom that's with people continuing to invest in the property that they have so that they're not moving out. They're able to adapt and modify the existing house as well as an accessory building so that they're staying on that property and it's staying there and not getting bought out and torn down.
Sure, and I completely understand, if you don't mind,
You still have...
I was about to call you Madam Mayor, but Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. So,
I've been called worse.
but I've lost my train of thought. I was about to say that I agree with the reasons why you want to send it back, but I would like to just point out something else that Mr. Griffin pointed out to us at the agenda setting session. If y'all remember, there's a difference between a dwelling and a structure. So
Correct.
Certainly what this would not allow is for somebody to build a dwelling which would have a kitchen on there, and I think that would certainly disrupt a lot of people in your neighborhood and that you represent, as well as mine and Commissioner Bell's and Commissioner Link's as well. So there's that concern.
Yeah, and then correct, there was an article in the paper that talked about a guest house. There's a difference between a guest house and having a spare bedroom in an outbuilding that is an accessory building. So we're talking about not an additional dwelling at this point. This is an accessory building.
Right.
Correct.
Well, first of all, to be clear, the ordinance specifically calls that a guest house. It's not a dwelling, but it is a guest house. It doesn't have a kitchen, but it's a guest house. My concerns are like yours, Commissioner Wright, and that is in the existing ordinance, and this didn't change. It says regardless of the side and rear yard requirements in the district, in a residential district, a side or rear yard may be reduced to 3 feet for an accessory structure. So that means we're ignoring what the side yard and backyard setbacks are in that district and saying if you build an accessory structure, you can go within 3 feet of the property line. I think that's where there's a problem, especially now that we've allowed them to build buildings that are twice as large as what we were allowing them to build. So I think that I agree with you. I'm going to support this motion.
Okay, I would ask that your comments be put in writing and submitted to Mr. Griffith so that that would make sure that you didn't get misquoted. If you write it down and send it to him, it's what you said. The motion is to deny the request and return it back to the Planning Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion is carried. We are now into our fourth opportunity for public comment. At this time, you may speak for 3 minutes on any item that you would like to address the commission. Please come forward to the podium, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Takika Platt, 117 East Surrey Court.
Shalon Bradford, 307 Jasmine Trail.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor, and Commissioners. My mother, sister, and I come before you tonight to request that Flint Street be renamed Jenny L. Maddox Street in honor of deceased community leader, my grandmother, Mrs. Jenny L. Maddox. Mrs. Maddox served as beloved center leader for the Parkview Recreation Center from 1974 to 1992, where she was also a resident from 2000 to 2015. Recently, the Intercommunity Council, of which she was a member from 1999 to 2015, and board president from 2004 to 2014, chose to name its building the Cameron Maddox Resource Center to commemorate her and Ms. Cameron's legacy. She received countless awards over her lifetime, from her appointment to the AHA Board of Commissioners, resident representative, to the Key to the City, from former Mayor Gwen O'Looney, who spoke at her homegoing service. Even her funeral was held at the Classic Center of Athens, given her volunteerism as hostess at many of their events. But to know her was not to know her accolades, but her love for her 5 children, her love of serving and desire for all to succeed, but most importantly, her love for Christ. These are the attributes that made her such a beloved center, community, church leader, and more throughout all of Athens. Therefore, I hope you too find it befitting to honor her with this street that encompasses her church, St. Paul AME, which she held so dear to her heart. For it is why we know where she is today, that she is smiling on us as her family, the many people she loved and that loved her, and on this request tonight. I want to especially thank Commissioners Wright and Sims for their help and guidance in this process. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I ask a quick question about this?
Yes, okay.
And I know I usually don't do this, but I'm wondering, have they started the process to do this?
I think this officially launches it.
Very good. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Sims and other commissioners. My name is Gloria Moses, and I live at 185 Minor Street in the Hancock community. I am here before you today as a member of the Hancock and Athens Coalition Against Displacement to speak about my concerns about the Hancock community. Some of the concerns relate to the lack of policing, lack of safety, our need for more street lights. I want to know my neighbors better. We want the kind of cultural cohesion that could go along with the community improvements we have been asking for. There are many empty houses on Parish Street. Something should be done about that. But if we leave it up to private investment, I am worried about what that means for our ability to stay the African American community that we have been for so long. We are seeing a lot of changes, especially on the east side. There is a great deal of history here. I am only here before you for 3 minutes, but I could go on to tell you stories for hours and hours about my neighborhood. It is a pivotal aspect of Athens' African American history, and there are many seniors living here who could do the same. I increasingly fear that I may get pushed out of my neighborhood. There have been people coming around, knocking on our doors, taking pictures, speaking to us day in and day out, surveying the streets, zoning in our area. My neighbors have been visited in their homes by people, white people, who wants to know if they are selling. Most of the people who share these stories with me are older people who are on a fixed income, who may or may not own their homes, but there are people trying to hold on. If the rents continue to rise, we will only see more displacement. I have considered leaving Athens, even leaving Georgia, and in some way I think I would like to, but my community is here. My church is here. I can walk to the local businesses, and I can tell you this, my history is here. You aren't going to run me off my street. If I leave, I want it to be because it's my choice. And that should be the case for all of the residents, not because they can no longer afford it, because they get priced or bought out. I want to stay. I want for us to have a better neighborhood. I want for us to have those community improvements we have been asking for. But it must come with protection against displacement. Thank you for your time, Mayor Pro Tem and commissioners. I hope we can work together to make improvement without displacement a priority for the local government. Thank you.
Thank you. We would ask that we don't have any jeering or cheering. We would like for just to receive the comments. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Linda Cunningham. I live at 9 Broad Acres of Athens, Georgia, and I am concerned about housing in the Hancock corridor community and being pushed out of our homes. There have been residential meetings around regarding the apartments. People have come to look at the property. There is a talk of moving residents in Broad Acres as residents in formerly Paldo were moved. Some people had to leave Athens because they could not find housing with their vouchers. I do not want to leave Athens. I have lived here since 1993. My daughter will be in high school next year, and I would like for her to finish school in Athens. Gentrification makes housing unaffordable for low-income residents. It forces low-income residents out of their communities. We do not want to be forced out of Broad Acres, Rock Springs, or Parkview. We hope that you will take into consideration that we treasure our homes just as any other resident living in Athens. We can use more assistance in helping our children get secondary schools and finding jobs that could move us out of Athens public housing. More jobs for the community are needed, and I think this would help to protect our housing. Please help us stay in our homes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Gwen O'Looney. I live at 626 Cobb Street, and I couldn't do a better job than Jenny L. Maddox's grandchildren did in telling what she gave to this community during her lifetime. I'm here to speak in support for the renaming of Flint Street, but I also want to share with you something I learned from an urban geographer this weekend, and that was how much you can improve the ownership, the participation, the involvement, the interaction, the citizenship of your community by doing this, by taking parts of the community and establishing an understanding of the neighbors and the residents of that neighborhood that have contributed to not only that neighborhood but the community at large. So I really see this as a wonderful opportunity for us to learn about weaving the history of our community and the people of our community into our structure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Commission, managers, management, and staff. I happened to stumble upon Tuesday night's February 2nd session, and it's my understanding that you've decided to charge this agency, Hancock CDC, for the use of the building located at 300 Henderson Extension. We find it very awkward not to have been notified of the forthcoming discussions. Now, especially considering the agency, Hancock CDC, contributions to this community, $2.5 million with the VITA program alone, as well as other services to this community not under consideration. One would tend to believe that the local government would be appreciative of the agency's contributions, especially considering the Hancock CDC agency has not received any financial contributions from the Athens-Clarke County Unified Government. Furthermore, before we took interest in this area, the building was abandoned and an eyesore dump with violent acts all about. 2 deaths to be exact, and other ills. Now people jog, walk their dogs through the community. Just the other day, I witnessed a father out teaching his children how to ride a bicycle. Not long ago, he would not have been comfortable teaching his children how to ride a bicycle in that community. Do you hear me? Not to mention the Hancock CDC, has kept and maintained the building with the exception of major repairs in good repair and habitable. Let us keep in mind that this agency has not asked for any support from the local government except when prompted to, and then denied. The last small grant that we received was in 2007. We are aware of other agencies that pay very little, if anything at all, in much nicer facilities. There's not one agency in this area who can say that they have contributed as much back to this community as the Hancock CDC without funding from the local government. For you who think because we provide services outside of the area, understand this. The other agencies receive funding, and thus it's just like they're giving or returning the money back. Now, I've been accused of being too quick to call the practices of this government discriminatory. Now, a country boy once told me, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, swims like a duck, it's most likely a duck. I would love to be wrong about this matter, especially considering we just marched on downtown Athens about this very thing, discriminatory practices. Then we wonder why some of our business establishments have the nerve to create racially insensitive drinks, along with other discriminatory practices. Oftentimes, we make policy without weighing the outcomes or consequences or the discriminatory effects on certain populations. Yes, my fellow Athenians, we have us here a duck in every sense of the illustration. It is with all due respect that we kindly ask and request you to please make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Sheets.
All right. Peace be with you.
Anyone else?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commission and staff, Tim Denson, 290 Midway Road. I'm here to officially ask you guys to start taking the steps to actually put in place an enforceable human relations code, and to have, as part of that code, installed a human relations commission made up of citizens of Athens-Clarke County, for the sole reason of combating discrimination and giving an avenue for victims of discrimination to actually be able to take steps to do something about it. Because right now, as we've seen, it's very limited what they can do. But I don't want this should be looked at as an opportunity here, and that's why I want to present this. I don't want to have some kind of idea of this is an us versus them. This is not. This is a fantastic opportunity for the people of Athens to work with the elected officials on the other side of this rail. Sometimes I wish this rail wasn't here. To take on a huge issue, not just for our community, not just for our state, but for our entire country and honestly our entire world. And I just ask you guys to rise to the occasion here. I urge you to take on this amazing challenge for this mayor and commission, 2016, to be known for a commission that decided to actually not just pass a resolution against discrimination, but take steps to actually try to curb it from happening in our community. The Athens-Clarke County can and should be a beacon right now, and honestly a time that's very dark when it comes to this kind of matters. Right now we have a state government probably working, possibly right now, to try to pass legislation specifically allowing and legalizing discrimination against LGBT members of our community and others. This is a time where we have Confederate-themed bars, but we also have presidential candidates who openly discriminate against people because of their faith. And we have white supremacist groups who are feeling braver now and are actually starting to come out, and they will be coming out in April, just miles away from here at Stone Mountain. And unfortunately, while all of this is happening, there's too little good happening here. And I am very proud to live in Athens-Clarke County. Sometimes I'm not quite as proud to live in Georgia, but I'm very proud to live in Athens-Clarke County. It makes me proud to be in Georgia because that's where it's at. But a resolution is not enough. A resolution is an acknowledgement of a problem, but you cannot, as a county government, acknowledge a problem and do nothing about it. It is literally your responsibility. You've already acknowledged the problem's there. You guys have. You passed a resolution knowing the problem is there. But you have not passed a possible way of solving that problem. And obviously it's not going to be something solved overnight, but doing something about it. And it can't just be downtown. It has to be the entire community. Because we should not be reactive,
Mr. Denson.
but proactive. Thank you so much. And I think other people would like to be speaking to this issue too.
Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. My name is Ruhollah Aghasaleh, 108 College Station Road. I'm going to talk about the same very issue of human relation codes and anti-discrimination issues in our community. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this very important issue. I'm a founding member of Feminist Scholar Activist and the communications officer of GLOBES, the UGA LGBT LGBTQ faculty and staff organization. In 2013, an anonymous user posted on the University of Georgia Black Affair Council Facebook page this message, quote, "Why can't you dump dirty nigger stop stinking up the place? Let UGA be right for good white Christian students," quote. While portrayed as an isolated incident, this is an honest translation of what white supremacist system implicitly conveys to underprivileged people on a regular basis. Last year, visiting a local high school in a majority black working class community of Athens, I confronted a poster posted all over the school. The poster titled "The Dress Code" included figures of two young adolescents, a black male wearing baggy jeans, bandana, tank top with a beer logo on front, and a white female wearing short shorts, halter top with spaghetti straps, and a hat. The poster was meant to visually portray the inappropriateness of hip-hop clothing, revealing too much skin and working-class attire at school. In the picture, representation of working-class masculinity and femininity was vivid, which was, of course, entangled with race as well. It conveyed a message to working class as well as black students and faculty and staff that it aims to exclude their culture from the school environment. It also emphasized on what is valued as modesty in the South, knowing that clothing is a sociocultural construct and potentially represents ethnicity, class, sexuality, and many other things. Posting this picture simply means that white middle-class clothing and culture is privileged over working class and black ones. I wrote to the principal and he never wrote back to me. In a community in which the majority is African American and from a working economic status, this implicitly teaches the students that their culture is disruptive for their education and academic success. However, all individuals should receive an equal respect and all cultures should be valued equally in a public institution. How could we call for diversity and multiculturalism and yet tell students to leave their cultural knapsack at the door? Dress code as it exists in and out of schools, including the downtown businesses, means some bodies are more privileged over the other. Dress code is to regulate and maintain the normative gender, sexuality, race, and class. Halter tops, tube tops.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up. If you would like to leave a copy of that, we will gladly take that.
All right, I'll do that.
Yes, Walter Swanson, 200 Springtree Road in Athens. I'd like to approve the last speaker and also the speakers before, Denson and Mr. Sheets. We do need to have a human rights, human relations code. And I would also like to emphasize, if we could see, if there's more openness in the government, if we could see what's being worked on before it's finished, if you could put it out to the community, especially I know the NAACP and the Athens for Everyone have asked for this in the past and haven't gotten anything in advance before a voting time, and it would be preferable. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Johnson. I reside at 272 Commerce Road. I'm here tonight to ask that you take concrete steps towards curbing discrimination that may exist now and possibly in the future. I know that we passed a resolution a few months ago, but my concern is the citizens in the community wouldn't know how to use this resolution if discrimination still occurred. After doing the march on January 18th, MLK holiday, there was almost 400 people in the streets. And I came to realize this discrimination issue go way deeper than skin color. It's affecting economics, it's affecting where people live, it's affecting this community in so many ways. So I ask that you guys consider possibly passing a human relations code and create a human relations commission. I believe that Athens need this, And I believe that it will help the people in our community to feel that they have some place to go. Not everybody can afford legal aid, and they don't even know how to start the process. And the resolution in place, we don't even know how to use it, how it can be a benefit of us to this community. And I just ask that you guys consider this, because over 400 citizens came downtown to march, and the issues go real deep, and there is discrimination in this community. When I moved here with my family, I thought this was a great place to live, and I want to continue to believe that. I've met some wonderful people, but something needs to be done. Something needs to be done before it happens again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Adam Veal, 173 Magnolia Bluff Drive. I'm here to speak about the Human Rights Commission. I'm not going to tell you too much more about the details. I think people have already done a good job establishing what we want. I want to give a little backstory on why I think this is necessary. I am a member of Athens for Everyone, and I lead trips up to the Capitol every week during the legislative session to lobby for progressive policy change on behalf of Athens for Everyone and the whole community. And there's some people at the Capitol who would be very much against this Human Rights Commission. There are several bills that I can think of that would codify discrimination in the state of Georgia. And so I'm coming to you as our commissioners to say that you have an opportunity to do a better job than our state representatives. This is an opportunity for you to stand up and say, hey, there's some pretty terrible things going on at the state level, but we want to make sure that Athens takes a stand and says that we don't stand for discrimination, that we are a welcoming city in Georgia. And you can set an example for other people throughout the state that that kind of behavior is just not tolerated. So I, again, urge you to establish a Human Rights Commission. I think you guys can be a beacon of progressive hope in Georgia, a place that I'm a little too often ashamed to be from. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Ken Dyers, 1107 Templeton Road. Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I certainly like to say something about what the young man said. As an attorney that done numerous civil rights cases, they're costly, they're long, poor people cannot afford them. If you could do something about that, that would be great. But on the other hand, I also came down to support Mr. Sheets. He come by and said that the city intend to impose a use tax on the building out there where the Hancock Crowd is located. As an old resident of Athens, Georgia, I remember when that building was a nightclub and nobody used it and sit there forever. I just don't see how you could come in now and impose a use tax. I refer people to the Hancock Crowd all the time. When people come to my office and say, Mr. Dyer, there's something wrong with my mortgage, there's something wrong with my escrow account, I've been overcharged and so forth. And I say, let me tell you what you need to do. You don't need to pay me $2,000 to do a spreadsheet for the last 10 years, which you paid. Once you go down to the Hancock Crowd, where you can get it done freely, and they'll do it for you. So it is a place that I know that is being used by the community. To place a use tax on an old building is only going to make it impossible for those type of people to have that services, because they're going to start a snowball down a hill that's just going to continue to, the taxes are going to continue to increase. I think the people in that neighborhood deserve to the point that they should not have to pay some type of increased fees and so forth, so the Hancock Crowd to pay a use tax, particularly under the circumstances where the government is not giving any funding to the Hancock Crowd. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilman. I'm John Clark. I grew up here in Athens-Clarke County, finished Bernie Harris in 1968. I have family members live here. Certainly I own property here and pay taxes here in Clarke County. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Sheets and the Hancock corridors. And I am really concerned about the treatment of poor people. I stand here before this council. We have a nation now has the notion that poor people do not matter. And I cannot believe that Clarke County would do anything that is inconsistent with looking out for the least of our people, whether they be black or white or whatever color they are. We all have a responsibility. And that's why I'm here tonight, because I live in Elbert County, but my concern is not just Elbert County. My concern is wherever people are. My concern are poor people and how they are being treated in this great nation in which we live. And I'm asking this body here to reevaluate and support an organization like Mr. Sheets is running. The organization needs money from this body. It needs support. We can find money for everything else. And I really encourage you to do that, because if you don't deal with it on the front end, we deal with it on the back end. If you push poor people out, where will they go? It increases our crime rate, our incarceration, and it appears that we have a state now that really has no concern about anybody who has nothing, but it's about the dollar. So I'm here this evening to ask this council to please reconsider and give this organization some money and support the effort and the good work that is done for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clarke.
Good evening. My name is Linda Lloyd, and I live at 205 Ambler Road here in Athens, Georgia. I'm here tonight to speak before you in support of the anti-discrimination resolution and a Human Relations Committee, or however we want to call it, to handle that. Now, I was just sitting back there thinking, see, poverty comes at you all kind of different ways. As you all know, I'm director of Economic Justice Coalition. I teach at Athens-Tech School, and I see poverty comes in all different ways. Now, I'm just thinking in terms of what we're dealing with the school system, that rape that we had. And when those things start happening in your community, those are signs that you done gone down too far. Now, you know we got a 38% poverty rate, and we got to kind of deal with this situation, because I sit here and I've been working on voter elections, not elections, but just getting people to the polls and that kind of thing, and we just not making no changes. You know, I started this stuff when I was 27 years old. I'm 61 years old now. And I just don't see the kind of changes that we need. And so I'm just asking you, will you please look at it for Athens-Clarke County? Now, I like Athens-Clarke County. I tell the registrar's office, they're the best registrar's office in the state. And I mean that, because I work with a lot of them in the state. But they the best in the state, and we got some good people here. So open up your heart. I just get tired of people talking to me about what they want to see and the good they want to see, and they're not putting no action behind it. So let's work on something that's going to give our people something that they can look at, like the Human Relations Committee, that we can kind of deal with some of these issues. So I'm going to sit down here, but I just want you to think about it, because I'm kind of getting tired myself. From 27 years old to 61, that's a long time. All right now, thank you.
Are there others? Seeing no one else coming to the podium, at this time we'll come behind the rail. We're going to start after I have, basically I'm filling in for the mayor. Athens Transit is doing a survey, and you can go online to do this. It is at www.surveymonkey.com/r/ that's Athens Transit. They're doing a feasibility study. I think Mr. McDuffie said there were over 200 or 300 already being done. But we're looking at ridership. You know, we keep talking, people come to us talking about the transit. And we're trying to do as many things as we can do with the transit, but we need your help. So if you will go to that website and fill out that survey, that would help tremendously in looking at this feasibility study. Mr. Manager, do you have anything, sir?
No, sir.
Mr. Attorney?
No, thank you.
Miss Operations of
Analysis.
Analysis.
I do not.
We'll start with Ms. Dickerson and go all the way around to Ms. Bell, and we do have an executive session at the end of this. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple of things. Myself and Commissioner Bell were appointed by the mayor to serve on the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. And we had a retreat last week in Dublin, and our leader, Rob Trevina, who's on staff with the Housing and Community Development Office, was there along with several other of our housing partners in Athens. Really excited about some opportunities to address some of the concerns that were mentioned here tonight throughout our community, and really looking forward to setting some real achievable goals in the next over the next 3 years that we'll be on this. Every 6 months we'll be working towards a specific goal. We'll be sharing that with you at our meetings when we have an opportunity. The other thing is I also had an opportunity to, Commissioner Wright and I decided we might go on the road. We were fortunate to participate in the Athens Community Council on Aging Senior Leadership Academy, I guess a couple of weeks ago. And I think we learned more than anybody there. We learned all sorts of stories from our mayor that neither one of us knew, which was interesting. But if you're not familiar with it, and since I'm not a senior, I wasn't familiar with it, they have a really great program. The day we participated in was a civics day. And it's free and available for people to participate in. You learn a lot about your community, the government, and then other activities in the community. So if you haven't heard about it, head down to Athens Community Council on Aging and learn more about it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Gertz.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I want to appreciate everyone who came down to the mic to speak tonight. Particularly want to make brief mention of the array of speakers who spoke about interest in anti-discrimination activities, and want to make it clear that this body recognizes that a resolution was not enough, that a resolution really was just a statement to kick off a volley of activity beyond that. And we've actively charged staff with developing some opportunities for anti-discrimination measures that would be part of our code of ordinances. These aren't easy things to develop. If you look at the Office of Civil Rights on the federal level, under the Justice Department, the work that they've done, particularly in the area of public accommodations, that area where we've heard the most complaints locally is very limited. And so we're really moving into territory that on the federal level, with the resources that they have at their disposal, is tough to manage. And so I think we're going to come up with some legitimate, solid prospects, but they need to be ones that work and that stick. So I just want to let folks know that work is underway right now. Thank you.
Ms. Lynn?
Yeah, I want to echo Commissioner Gertz's concerns about the discrimination issue and echo the need for a Human Relations Commission, not just as a means of addressing this problem, but as a means of nurturing new leadership. We've got a lot of gray hair in this room, and we need to provide opportunities for young people from throughout our community. And I got it too. It's time for me to see Ms. Clairol. Then we need to create these opportunities for young people to get involved in local government about things that they care about and that affect them directly. And this is an opportunity right here. So I hope that will be an integral part of how we move forward addressing this issue. And I also want to address some of the concerns about the Hancock neighborhood. There's a lot of uncertainty in that community. They hear things about this study that's going to take place. The local government has allied with the school district and the land trust and the housing authority to do a feasibility study of the entire Hancock West Broad corridor. And I'm intimately interested in how this goes. I'm deeply concerned about the preservation of that neighborhood and maintaining the affordability of that neighborhood and assuring that people aren't displaced from the neighborhood and that families can hold on to their houses and that wealth stays in the family. I've been meeting pretty regularly with folks who have some knowledge of activities there. I'm meeting with some staff this week as well, and I'll be addressing it soon. I hope to have a community meeting to talk about some of the issues facing that community, and we'll be hearing more from staff as that feasibility study gets started, and I hope that it will include a whole lot of community input so we can protect that neighborhood and also encourage some business growth over there, local business growth. And I've also requested, with Mr. Sheets, I've requested that a meeting with his board so we can discuss some of the issues facing the Hancock Development Corporation. I'm hoping that we can come to some kind of solution and see that that organization can move forward smoothly. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Ling.
I brought a couple things forward that I wanted to speak about at this time. I did want to mention that Survey Monkey that the transit wants March 7th is the deadline for that. So don't delay it. I think that's Monday. Anyway, just go ahead and do that survey if you haven't done that already. The second thing I wanted to do was to express my support for Ms. Platt and her family's request for renaming Flint Street to become Jenny L. Maddox Street. I hope that staff will contact me or Commissioner Sims if there's anything in the process. It's my understanding that asking at the meeting tonight prompts the process to start. If there's anything that we're missing in that, if staff would let us know, and we also have contact information for the family if there's additional things that we need to do on this side. The last thing I wanted to say was that I wanted to applaud John Edwards, the dedicated professional and expert that we recently hired for the 5 Points parking survey. He quickly developed professional relationships with several of us, including myself, Commissioner Bell, the acting manager, as well as department heads. He passed away 12 days ago, and I would like for this to send our heartfelt condolences on behalf of our government to his family, his friends, and his evidently extensive professional network.
Thank you.
I don't have anything at the moment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Neesmith?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to comment about a meeting we had, I guess it was last week, with the UGA Student Government Association and how incredibly productive that is. They brought us some issues about pedestrian safety, particularly on MLK, about the lighting. I think we should definitely take a close look at that. It's not the first time we've heard of that issue. And they wanted to know more about what we're doing about the human rights situation. And I happened to be sitting at the table with our attorney, Bill Berryman, who explained very well in that discussion about where he is in that process. I'm certainly not going to share that with you right now, but be assured he is moving along and he's looking at all the options and he's exploring what's viable, what's supportable, what's defendable. And so I think we're going to see some good ideas coming out of his office for us to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hamby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. And I just want to comment to Commissioner Link that instead of visiting Miss Clairol, you could shop local and visit Miss Diane Bell over at her shop. Right. Her shop there, who could work wonders. And look what she's done for me. I'm just kidding. But I do, on a little bit more, a lot more serious note, I read in the paper the other day about our tax commissioner not running for re-election this year. And I just want to say about Commissioner Mitch Schrader, what a good job he's done for years in helping make sure that our taxes are collected. And without Mitch around, we wouldn't be able to talk about budget goals and objectives or pedestrian safety or pay for anything or pay for the manager's salary, which may not be a bad thing, I guess. But I'm just joking there too. But at any rate, I hope we can send Mitch Schrader some good wishes and look forward to him becoming tax commissioner again.
Amen.
Thank you.
Ms. Bell?
First of all, I want to thank our management for the goals and objectives journey. We didn't have that exactly last year, and I feel very secure with what we're going to be working toward this year, and I appreciate the effort y'all have done in it. Thank you very much. At this point, Mayor Pro Tem Sims, I would like to move that we adjourn and go into executive session.
It is motion by Ms. Bell that we adjourn and go into executive session by Mr. Neesmith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We want to thank everyone that attended the meeting tonight. We hope that you will come back and join us again. Have a good evening.